So, welcome everybody. Um, this is our Sidebar speaker series. So, every week we bring in at least one or two amazing speakers, sometimes from within the community and sometimes outside of the Sidebar community. So, Sidebar, for those who might not know, it is a career growth operating system that has peer circles, personal board of directors, but we do also offer one-on-one exec coaching and a whole suite of um, of offerings to help you grow in your leadership career and your entrepreneurial career. I am so thrilled this morning to introduce my good friend Su Belagodu, who we met in Sidebar a couple of years ago, and we've been friends ever since, and have collaborated on many, many, many projects together. Sue's an incredible human being. She's longtime seasoned product exec, and over the last couple of years, she moved into the world of fractional consulting, helping many startup founders with their product strategies, but also growth strategies, leveraging modern AI tools. And she's going to share a few things that she has learned over the last couple of years and doing this work. With that, I'm really, really excited to hand it off to Sue.
Thank you, Ha. Thank you for that intro. I'm really honored that I have Ha moderating this session. She's been the reason why I joined Sidebar, and I feel like I found a home within Sidebar and my kind of people, which is so important in your career, in your career journey. So thank you for being here. So today, guys, I'm going to talk a little bit about what is human in the loop kind of system really looks like. I've spent a lot of time doing research on it, reading papers, so you don't have to. And so you'll walk away with some practical frameworks and mental models. But I also have a small exercise somewhere midway. So I want to understand how you all can assess what you've built. So let's get started. I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right, there we go. All right, just confirming everybody sees who's really in the loop from smoke and mirrors to real results. You guys see that? All right, great. So over the next 40 minutes, I'm going to show you what the research actually says about HITL systems and when they work and when they fail spectacularly, right? And how to build them. So you'll leave with a maturity model to assess where you are with the framework and a framework to design better systems and a practical playbook. And if you have, we'll have some time for for questions, and I want to hear more about what you've all been building. So Ha already introduced me, and thank you for that. In addition to that, I write a Substack. I just recently started doing that, and I've been enjoying it a lot. I share frameworks and mental models that has worked for me and for other industry leaders. So I spend a lot of time analyzing and then creating that content. If you're into that, then would love for you to follow along. So let's talk about the big question, right? Everybody gets it now. AI is powerful. It's not a trend. It's not a side experiment, and it's here to stay. But let me tell you something. Imagine you finally buy your dream sports car, like the one you see there. It's sleek, it's precise, it's built for speed, the kind of machine that's engineered to perform at high levels. Now, place that car in the middle of a rush hour in whichever city you're in, right? Boston, San Francisco, London. Well, there's no difference between that sleek sports car and the minivan next to it, right? Bumper to bumper traffic, double park delivery trucks. The sports car is not as fast as it can be. And not because it lacks power, but because the environment around it wasn't designed for performance. That's AI inside most organizations today. We've built the sports car, we've invested in the horsepower, but then there's no clear lanes, there's no routing logic, no feedback loops. So we just have AI and hope. So why are we surprised when it underperforms, right? You see those stats on the screen. This is from some of the recent reports, and they're all over LinkedIn, where people talk about 42% initiatives have been abandoned, but they don't really talk about why. And the why is the careful design that we have to put in place for AI to perform. And that's what we'll discuss today. So let's look at where AI actually works. So this is based on two studies. This is not just a rhetoric. The first one was from health diagnostics, and what they found was when they had um, when they had AI models look at these pathology reports, it got 92% of that accurately, which is fantastic to begin with, right? But highly trained, both certified pathologists achieved 96%. And when they put them together, it was 99.5%. Yeah. And so the combination works better than both individually, right? And that's what brings us hope. It's not saying that AI by itself cannot do it or humans by themselves cannot do it, but what is the power you'll unlock when you put them together? The second one was a recent enterprise study on customer service systems. They built what they called cost-aware human-in-the-loop architecture, which intelligently routes between AI agents and human experts based on case complexity. They looked at confidence levels and customer risk, and the results were fantastic. So the pattern's very clear across these studies and multiple other studies that when designed properly, it's a strategic advantage that delivers better outcomes than either humans or AI working alone. And why why it's not optional anymore, right? It's regulatory. As you can see, there's the EU AI Act, which went into effect recently, and it explicitly states that appropriate human oversight for high-risk AI systems that includes hiring decisions, credit scoring, healthcare diagnostics. The NIST AI risk management framework here in the US says the same thing. And any sector specific ones, like if there's GDPR for data privacy, there's HIPAA, there's FINRA or FINRA for financial services, all of them require human accountability in automated systems. But beyond compliance, there's the ethical imperative, right? According to research, 61% of senior leaders recently have raised a lot of funds in responsible AI. That can be a coincidence, right? Why is that? Because AI systems can perpetuate and amplify bias if it's unchecked. And because diverse human stakeholders can catch blind spots that homogeneous training data typically create. If you've been creating systems, you should know how homogeneous the data looks. Even this is what led to the bad reputation of AI slop, where everyone's talking about the same things, everyone sounds alike. That's coming from homogeneous training data. So fundamentally, AI lacks empathy and moral reasoning, right? It cannot apply contextual ethics or understand human impact on edge cases. So all of us who are building and selling AI know that customer trust is the number one metric in adoption, right? Trust equals accuracy, it equals transparency. And so why it's not optional is we want to gain that trust. And building human in the loop systems accurately will help us get that metric, the trust metric, high. So I've been reading a lot, as I said, all the research papers on HITL, but I've also been working with organizations, small and big, on implementing human in the loop systems. And so based on that, I've designed this. This is just my way of thinking about it and helping you understand where you could be in your journey. So I want to propose this maturity model, and it has 4 levels. And we'll do a little exercise with it right after this slide. But let's first go through what these 4 levels are, right? Level 0 is automation first, and what I call smoke and mirrors. Humans are technically present in the system, but the override rate is under 5%, which tells you they're not actually exercising judgment, right? There are no feedback loops, so the AI never improves human input. And when something breaks, the accountability answer is the system did it, There's no named human owner. And you're at high risk for silent failures in this case because there are compliance violations and cascading errors. An example that comes to mind is the Taco Bell AI, which ordered 18,000 water bottles because someone asked for a lot of water. There was no confidence threshold there. So if that's where you are, that's the first level. So that's level zero, automation first. What's level one? This is what I call reactive human in the loop, or what researchers are calling human on the loop rather in the loop. Human monitors systems and steps in when there is a problem. Intervention rate is typically 5 to 15%. It's a post hoc error correction rather than prevention. And the value is real. You can catch errors before your customers see them, but it's exhausting for humans. And because they're essentially on call, they're babysitting the AI. So the AI doesn't improve over time because interventions are not systematical. They're not systematically fed back into training models. So that's your reactive HITL. Level three of the maturity model is intentionally designed HITL. So this is intentional partnership. This is where you start using confidence scores to determine routing. You have clear escalation criteria. 80% and above, you can do it yourself. If not, a human review is required. Say you've built structured feedback loops where human decisions are tagged and fed back into your models, maybe on a quarterly basis, if not monthly, if your system traffic is not that high. And you also track collaboration metrics like override rate or override accuracy time. Override accuracy, yeah. And then time to decision is another thing where we're measuring metrics purely on AI performance. We're not truly building a human in the loop. You have to measure the human output as well. So we'll talk a little bit about what those metrics are in later on slides. But if you're doing all of that, then you're in level two. Level three, or the best one right now, or the most mature systems look like, is collaborative intelligence. And some researchers are calling it AI in the loop, not human in the loop. And this is not going back in time. This is definitely using AI the right way for high stake industries, right? Because human is in charge and the AI is the assistant, and it's not the other way around. AI provides, say, rich context, confidence scores, comparable cases, and reasoning transparency, whereas the human will make the final decision with full information. You have continuous bidirectional learning. Human teaches AI through corrections and feedback, and AI teaches humans by surfacing patterns which they might miss. So the AI decides just about 10% of the time, but it's constantly helping the human make better decisions. So this is what led to the 99.5% accuracy in the healthcare example we saw. Now, here's what's important, right? Most teams that I go into work with, if you've built a set of AI systems supporting existing workflows, you honestly think you're at level two. But most teams are at level zero or level one. And that's completely okay because awareness is the first step. And the good news is that moving from level zero to level two doesn't require you rebuilding your ML models or changing your entire tech stack. And this really surprised me because it requires intentional design of the human role. And that is something that you can do in the most cost-effective way, right? It's better interfaces, operational design around feedback loops. So let's now kind of jump into that exercise because this was so theoretical, and because it's based on research, I didn't want to gloss over it. But I want to understand where you all are in your journey. So the next two slides, I'm going to share an example that's pretty common in most product companies using AI for customer support and triage. And the other one is AI onboarding. For both of them, I want you guys to look at the questions. If you've not even thought of it, or you don't know the answer, or it's not true at all, score it a 0. If it's somewhat true, you're partially doing it, score it a 1. And if you're consistently doing it, consistently, let's say for 2 quarters, right? Then score yourself a 2. I want you guys to look at the screen and start scoring. Put in your numbers in the chat, but hold on to your final total because this adds to the next slide. So the first one is when AI classifies or routes a ticket, the support agent can see the confidence score and routing reason before acting on it. So what would your score be for that, right? The next one is support agents can override an AI suggested response or escalation in one click. Guys, UX in this case is super important, so that one click is super important with no approval needed. Oh, wait, I think the questions here. It's all right. There's more questions coming. So my apologies. Looks like I repeated the 3 questions there. There is a named person accountable for AI handled support quality, not just a system uptime or deflection rate. Let me quickly pull the other questions. You might for a bit see some random things. Okay, so this is not on the screen, but I want you guys to take a stab at this. We know our override rate for AI suggested responses. If it's below 5%, we've investigated whether that reflects accuracy or automation bias. Did you guys get that? We know our override rate for AI suggested response. If it's below 5%, we've investigated whether it reflects automation bias or accuracy. So the next question, when a case is misrouted or an AI response is corrected by a human, that correction is captured and reviewed to improve the model. This is the feedback that we're talking about. So the question was, when a case is misrouted or an AI response is corrected by a human, that correction is captured and reviewed to improve the model. All right. So these were 5 questions related to AI customer support and triage. So I'm just curious what the numbers look like. Hi, if you don't mind, can you come off mute and tell me what's in the chat?
Yeah, we're still waiting for responses. So
Okay, great. If you have a total of what this slide came up to for you, I'd love to see that. You do not have to explain yourselves if you don't want to come off mute and talk about it, but I'm just trying to gauge where everybody is in their journeys. All right, so let's give you guys a couple seconds and then move to the next one. All righty. So if whatever your total was, hang on to that and add to it. Don't start afresh, add to it. So let's look at the next workflow that is very typical in a lot of companies. And there are so many add-on tools now for AI onboarding and activation. So let's see how this is designed. If you haven't built it in your own companies, guys, I want you to take the best guess. Like if you were designing, and don't think giving everything a 2 will get you a high score. That's a trick question. So be honest with your feedback. So let's look at this one. So when AI decides which onboarding path, prompt, or nudge a user receives, a human has reviewed the logic and edge cases that define those segments. So what do you think? It's a 0, 1, or 2? If AI misreads a user's intent or activation stage, there is a clear mechanism visible to the user or the CSM to correct and override the path. We can point to at least 3 user types or scenarios where human judgment produces better activation outcomes than AI alone. When onboarding outcomes are poor, our process distinguishes between AI decision failures and product/fit failures. And the last one is accountability for AI-driven onboarding is explicit. Someone reviews whether the AI's bets on users are paying off and acts on what they've learned. So this is the next 5. So let's take a couple seconds to score them, and I can share my experience of working with a couple startups that were building this and what those average scores look like. Oh,
Average
someone,
check put 1-1. Was it 1 point each for each slide, average check, or do you want to come off mute?
is that 11 or 1?
I don't know. It says 1-1.
Okay, okay. Well, 11 seems like a decent score. You must have a really good system built. That's good to know. All right. So if you do paste it later, that's cool. But let me share what I've seen. So most companies that I work with, oh, first of all, if your score is between 0 to 6, that's automation first or reactive. If your total score was between 7 and 13, you're designing intentional human in the loop. So Abhishek, you're in the intentional designed human in the loop. But if your score was 14 to 20, please email me later because you've developed a collaborative intelligence, which is fantastic and which is, believe it or not, still very rare. So that's what the scoring is. I can put it in the chat, but 0 to 6, reactive, automation first. 7 to 13 is designed HITL, and 14 to 20 is collaborative intelligence. And
Hi, sorry, I was talking on mute, I think. I'm sorry,
oh,
apologies. So how do we start the journey? So let's say if our score is six or
mhm.
7, how do we start that process to increase it? Where do we start from?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's like you almost peeked into my next slide because that's exactly what we'll talk about. Thank you for the question. All right. So how do we go there? And Abhishek, it's not just you. A lot of them are in that same boat, right? So what changes between being in level 1 and moving up to level 2? The big unlock, you guys, is that it is not more tech. It's design and operations. And a lot of them are stuck at level 0 and level 1 and can easily move to level 2. So here are some 8 dimensions you can look at your existing workflows through to understand how to move from level 1 to level 2. And I'll go through them quickly. So review triggers. At level 1, humans review everything or they review randomly. Every 10th decision or Monday morning batch reviews where you're so ready to get started. So you're going to check a few boxes and be done. At level 2, you use confidence scores to route. So that's intelligent routing, right? So AI decides on high confidence cases and humans review low confidence or high stake cases. So this focuses human attention on where it matters most. So the second dimension is escalation criteria. At level 1, humans intervene when something seems wrong. It's a gut feeling or it's informal. It's not defined. But at level 2, you have clear documented criteria. So below 80% confidence immediately triggers a human review, right? Certain customer segments always get human review. Decisions above a dollar threshold require human approval. It's explicit and it's consistent. The third one is the override process. At level 1, overriding the AI often means finding a setting buried in a menu, filling out a justification form, or maybe triggering a notification to someone's manager. But at level 2, overriding is one-click action. It's expected behavior and not an exception that needs defending. And this is also critical for leaders that are expecting your teams to implement and use these systems effectively. If you want them to adopt AI, in a frictionless manner, make it easy for them to use it. And don't hold them, and don't send them to the purgatory if they didn't do it without your permission. So giving people the agency to override AI when those criteria have met is key. Feedback loops. At level 1s, humans override, the decision typically disappears. Maybe it goes into a long file or a log that no one ever reviews. But at level 2, overrides are tagged with structured reasoning. Why did the human disagree? Why did they see that AI missed? And that feeds back into the model training on a regular cadence, like maybe monthly or quarterly. Nupur, I see your hand up there. Can we just go through the next 3 and then I can take your question if that's good. Thank you. Thank you. The next one is interface design. This is, we've all heard in AI, UI, UX is super important, and believe me, so it is. At level 1, you have a generic dashboard showing AI predictions. At level 2, you have a thoughtfully designed review interface that kind of shows you all of the details you need. Confidence scores, AI reasoning, if available, comparable historical cases, and contextual information. All of that needs to be there for you to make a quality decision. So that's your interface design. Metrics, we spoke a little bit about this earlier. At level 1, you track just the AI metrics because, hey, that's the new guy. So let's scrutinize AI. Precision, recall, accuracy. But at level 2, you're holding the human in the loop and the design system accountable. So you track collaboration metrics. What's the override rate? Is it in the healthy 10-20% range, or is it 5% saying, suggesting automation bias? Or is it over 30% suggesting that AI isn't ready for these kind of use cases? What's the accuracy of human overrides? Are they making good decisions? What patterns are emerging in these disagreements between human and AI? It's really important to track all those metrics and tracking metrics of collaboration. Accountability. Level 1, everyone reviews it, but no one owns the outcome. The system did it, right? But at level 2, you have a named person or a clearly defined role who's accountable for when things go wrong. So this is not very different from creating high-performing teams of humans, but now you have systems in the mix. And so how do you hold them all accountable? The last one is learning. Level 1, the AI stays static. You are putting all your chips on the core model that you're leveraging to build your system and hoping that they're doing a good job. But in level 2, the AI continuously improves because your humans in the loop are feeding feedback and training the model. So these are these 8 dimensions that I've used to help companies mature from level 1, where they were reactive, to level 2. Nupur, we can take the question now. Thanks for your patience.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. This is great. It's really codified some of the things that, previously was asked, like, how do you get started? Where do you get started? In your experience, when organizations go through this in a structured way, where are they starting? Are they starting with a geo? Are they starting with a product? Are they starting with a, region? What are the factors to consider? Because again, if you look at a larger organization, it's practically impossible to do that. It's very unique.
Yeah, no, great question, Nupur. So it comes down to prioritizing and strategizing what first needs a HITL system. There's another whole workshop on that I do where I don't go in. If I go in and they say, we want to redo our customer success team and or AI onboarding, help us with that. I do not. I start with, tell me why that is important. What signals are you not getting in either of those use cases that you should be getting, and why you want to introduce AI in the loop, right? So we start with that. And so once you've understood that really well, that indeed that is the right place to start or the right workflow to automate, and by doing that, you are going to get real outcomes, then you start with the design. But, the first thing you start with is the human. So you design around the human in the team. So I'll tell you a little bit more about it. I cut my slides down because there was so much content, but if it's not there, I will connect with you and I'll walk you through that. But yeah, you start with the human.
Yeah, love to. Yeah, I'd love to share notes or and compare notes and what that is, because I feel like that's where there's a lot of analysis paralysis happens in companies on where to get started, or converge on where to get started.
Yeah. It's all about prioritizing the right outcomes. But yeah, happy to chat.
Great.
Happy to
Thank
chat
you.
more. All right. So the question that Nupur asked was, how do you build these and where do you get started? So building effective system requires you to get three things right. And I call them the three pillars: intentional design, operational excellence, and responsible AI. Intentional design, the key insight here comes from, not from me, right? Like I said, it's not a rhetoric. It comes from a research that was created by Stanford's Human-Centered AI Institute. And they said HITL reframes automation as human-computer interaction design. You're not just building an AI model or tracking or AI model with a review step. You're designing a collaborative system where humans and AI work together. So this means starting with the human role. What decisions require human judgment? What context do they need? What actions can they take? Right? If most teams build the AI first and then drop the human in the process, I would ask you to reverse that. Start with what requires human judgment first. Operational excellence, we spoke about how so much of this is designing the process. It's making sure you have confidence scores for edge cases, routing, building the right escalation workflows, holding both the human and AI collaboration accountable and not just one, maintaining audits that then feeds the training, creating structured feedback loops. And the last piece is what I feel super passionate about is responsible AI. This is the why and not the why not. You're actively working to detect and mitigate bias. You're ensuring fairness across all demographic groups and not just overall accuracy. You're applying moral and contextual judgment where AI cannot. So these three pillars are mutually reinforcing what a good system can be. And good designs will make this HITL operations smoother. Let's go to the last kind of takeaway for you. I think in frameworks and mental models, you guys, I'm sorry if it's all structured that way and if it's an overdose, but if you want to get started, here are some three precise questions you can ask yourself, your teams, to build better products. Question one, what's the cost of being wrong? If AI makes a mistake on this decision, what'll happen? If the cost is low, we're talking about product recommendations, drafting content, search result rankings, then more automation is acceptable, right? You might do spot check reviews, but you don't need a human in the loop for every decision. The second question's around, what do edge cases teach us? When the AI encounters something unusual, is that noise or is that signal? Noise is truly a random outlier and a one-off error that doesn't represent like a systematic gap. So you can filter those. But signal is when edge cases reveal systematic gaps in your training data, in the way your AI has been built. So those of you who learn via HITL, humans kind of review them. You incorporate that into learning and training your systems. Question 3 is who owns the outcome? And if something goes wrong, who's accountable? If the answer is, hey, the system did it, then you're in dangerous territory because that's automation first with zero accountability. It won't hold up to regulatory scrutiny if you're in any of those highly regulated industries. So you need to have a named human who is responsible for those workflows, or even better, a collaborative distributed team that holds the whole thing together. So go through these questions that can help you design your own HITL system effectively. What's the cost of being wrong? What do edge cases really teach us? And who owns the outcome? So from the entire session, I want you to remember just these 3 things, 3 key things. Human in the loop is not optional. And most teams are at level 0 or 1, so you're not lagging. If you're just getting started, you are right in there with everybody. So what's important is to get started and then move to level 2 with your designs. And the third pillar is intentional design, which is operational excellence and responsible AI. So you need all of these 3 things to build a great human in the loop system. And hey, look what that leads us to. It leads us to better roads, greener, and better systems. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for sticking with me through this presentation.
Awesome. And is that the QR code that
Yes,
folks
for
should
the
link to?
NTS.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll keep the slide up. We'll take a bunch of questions now, and I see a lot of applause, by the way. So
Thank
thank you, Sue, for an incredible talk, and you're sharing your wisdom with us. And I feel like we're just getting started. So let's get some questions out. And while we get some of the questions out and answer them, please do the rest of us take out our phones, point it to the QR code, and answer 3 questions. What did you think about this session? What could have gone better? And other speakers that you'd like to hear from. And then Sue, thank you, Sue, for sharing also in the chat the link to the survey. Okay, so why don't we start with some of the questions that came through in the chat? So I love to hear voices. So why don't we start with Manju? Manju, are you willing to come off of chat and ask your question?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Jaha. So,
Hi.
one of the slides that you had earlier,
Mhm.
can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, you sound
Yeah, I
great.
can hear you.
All right. So one of the slides that you had earlier, you're talking about collaboration metrics, right? So
Yeah.
how do you measure that? I was just thinking of that one as an example. And then overall, how do you know that you're succeeding? There again, metrics. I'm an operational person, so operations person. So I always want to, okay, how do I know I'm succeeding? And
Yeah.
so how would you measure that for the entire human in the loop process itself? It's a shift. Um, so far, human beings have always been accountable, but there are others in the loop now. And how do we make
Yeah.
sure it's at the right level, right? So what are the metrics that you see?
Yeah, no, great question, Manju. Thank you. So there are specific metrics that you would measure for the system you've built itself, and that's what I call the collaboration metrics. And what that meant is don't just measure like the AI efficacy and accuracy or the speed, but measure what percentage of AI recommendations were escalated to a human? What percentage of edge cases did the AI not get right? How many times did the human provide feedback to the AI, and how often was all of that captured and fed back to model training? So metrics that measure the collaborative aspect of human in the loop is what you would measure for the success of that system. But if you're talking about metrics of the overall success of implementing human in the loop systems, that goes back to your KPIs and organizational success metrics. Because all of these solutions you built, if they don't tie up to your senior leaders' KPIs, then it's not going to get the kind of support that it should, and it cannot be successful. So it ultimately has to bubble up to your KPIs. But for that system alone, you can define the collaboration metrics and measure them.
So in most of these cases, is it about, so we have a product, we're working towards the product and getting it out faster, better. So are the measurements around those still? Is
Yeah,
that not shifting with AI? That's what would be interesting to see.
Can you elaborate? Because I think it'll be different for different industries. Like say in the healthcare industry, it's about being able to diagnose quickly and to be able to diagnose accurately. And with AI in the mix, they're able to hit both of those two measurements. And the third and most important measurement metric for healthcare systems is, say, physician burnout. How do you reduce that without really impacting patient experience? And with building human in the loop systems, you're able to impact all of those metrics. So I think it depends on the industry and your company's desired outcome.
Yeah, overall with AI across the board, it's still efficiency, accuracy, speed. I mean, that's efficiency. Then productivity. So it's still the same. That's what you're saying, right? How you end up measuring?
At least in this scenario of building human in the loop systems, I'm not talking about, building novice AI solutions that will be the solution of the future. I am talking about current working systems, enterprises that require AI to do what they're already doing with a lot more efficiency. Those kind of metrics stay the same, in my opinion.
Excellent. Yep. Thank you. Makes sense. Thank you very much.
Okay, Heather. Oh, by the way, Sue, I think the Bitly isn't working, so so we might need to go through the QR code.
Okay.
Yeah. If you can you make the QR code a little bit bigger on the screen? By the way, I don't know if you can zoom in. And then let's take the next question while you do that. Heather, do you want to ask a question? Do you feel like it got answered?
Yeah, I maybe a little bit more detail. Coming from smaller organizations, just trying to understand where some of the accountability that we talked about sits, both when those AI workflows are inside the product that we're delivering to users, but also many AI workflows are inside our processes to help with all of our product development, discovery, and making decisions on what we should build and the feedback and all of these things. So just trying to get a sense of like, if you don't have a huge company where, you'd have an entire department for that, where would that ownership live?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, Heather. And I think I would lead with what problem is it solving for you mainly? And who does that? Whose everyday work does that impact in a big way? Is it the CEO or is it the product manager? Or is it the customer success lead? What problem is it solving and for whom? Typically in smaller startups, I've seen that because everybody is like a Swiss knife of their own, the core leadership team or the founders own it. But if in slightly larger organizations, it's usually like the engineering manager and so on and so forth. So I always ask the team this question as like, if this process does not produce appropriate results, or if it misleads your customers, and who will it impact? And typically that person should be accountable. And it's not always possible that the senior leaders are in big companies, but in the smaller ones, definitely. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. That's super helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I see Donna had a question. Donna, feel free to go off mute if you'd like. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna just keep moving on. Donna had a question in the chat. But Adrian, I see your hand up.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really, really good. Question for you, like the feedback, like the human in the loop, like arrives sometimes at the end, right? So do you need to put like feedback loop and like or human in the loop at every stages of the process? So for example, the like did I prompt it correctly, right? And so did it retrieve the information properly, right? So you probably need something here. I mean,
Yeah,
you have evals already, right? But
yeah.
like how like but do you need to complement those evals with human in the loop all the way?
Such a good question. And I think it depends on how complex your workflow is. But essentially, if you design the system with proper routing based on confidence scores and things like that, there is a lot of it that the AI can do itself without being watched. Because if you add too many and across the entire workflow, then you'll be in level one of the maturity where the human can get burnt out, right? They're essentially on call all the time. That's what I was talking about. So designing intentionally, there are design patterns for implementing human in the loop. Maybe a session for another day. And one of the principles is that like you have appropriate confidence levels and routing set up so that the human in the loop, neither is it at the end nor is it at the beginning. I would say, Adrian, it is when the need is present. So if the confidence scoring is less than 70%, but for your business, you need it to be 80% and more, that's when you introduce a human in the loop. For edge cases, you don't want the AI to make that decision. That's when you have human in the loop. So I wouldn't look at it as at the beginning or end of the process, but I would look at it as what are those key moments in that workflow that would require a human judgment.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, I'm going to read out Darna's question because I think he had some mic issues.
Okay.
Can you give an example from your experience? Where are the chances of failure or challenges in implementing human in the loop?
Thank you so much for that question. And hold on, can you guys see the rest of my screen, or can you, otherwise I would have shown you something. Can you just see can you only see the bit.ly right now?
We can see the cloud.
Good, because I was going to pull up there and show you, but no, I just realized that there might be other customer information that I can't share. Where do you see human in the loop fail? My gosh, this is so good. The first and foremost, when you are throwing the human there as a watchman, as a watchdog, more than being integral part of the workflow. So if you say the entire onboarding happens with AI, and then a user comes back and complains that, hey, my choices should have led me to, say you're using Figma and you want the workspace to be of a product manager, but the automated AI onboarding takes you to the engineering kind of space where none of the recommendations and templates make sense. Then they get to you and say, this was completely broken, I'm not using it. Then that's too late. Like that is one of the things that's happened where escalations lead to the human rather than the human being in the loop. So I've seen that go wrong there because most times it goes wrong when people misunderstand what human in the loop really is, and just have approvers. The second that I've seen it go wrong is when what was that percentage? Like less than 5% they disagree with AI. If it's not a critical workflow and you've introduced AI in it, then fine. I mean, if you're not going to lose business over this, then great. But if it is a critical workflow and the human that is by design part of it is not constantly giving feedback to improve that model, then I see it fail. And most times it has been because of poor process. They don't have an easy way to stop AI and give it that feedback. Rather, they have to fill lengthy forms. So, to answer your question in short, none of the times I've seen them fail is because of technology. It's because of lack of design or poor operations.
That makes sense. I finally made my microphone work. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Thank you for asking the question, Darna, and thank you,
Yeah.
Sue. Okay, and then I think we have time for one more question. Stacy, if you're still on, do you want to come off of mute?
Yes, thank you. I'm really fascinated by all of this, and it's inspiring as somebody who comes from the design side of things. I'm really curious if there are other measures of success that you recommend that are really assessing how the humans are participating and feeling about their participation in this experience. You talked about physician burnout. Like, how
Yeah.
are you assessing those quality of the experience for a human?
So, thank you for that question, Stacy. So you mean metrics to measure the outcomes that improve humans, or you're talking about the humans that are in the loop and how to measure their kind of involvement or commitment?
I'm interested in both sides of that.
Okay,
But
yeah,
since you're talking about the how the physicians are working with the system, I am also really
yeah.
like, let's talk about that first.
Right, right, of course. I mean, any physician, so I work in the health equity space. I actually work with physicians who are doing this work. And any physician you ask, physician burnout was never a metric that was successfully measured before, but that affects everything downstream. Patient experience, it affects value-based care metrics that all these companies measure for. So physician burnout is something new that is being measured now. And the way that reduces is precisely this, like the example that we looked at, and I can share my research kind of paper with you later if you're interested in reading more, is where when they were paired with AI, it looked at a lot of cases that fit into like a set description of things. So only the critical cases or the edge cases came to them for deeper review. So giving them more time to analyze that, their predictions were more accurate, and it also kind of saved them time. So that is the customer outcome, right? Like you have happy physicians, so you have better outcomes. Now, talking about people that are as part of the human in the loop design, holding them accountable, I think first and foremost, we have to make the process easy for them to be able to review the feedback from AI, for them to capture those moments. Like I said, there's some companies that were just capturing feedback on a big log file. And if you have to then gather all of that and then send it to engineering to train the model, that was not happening. So the UI or the dashboards that they had really made it easy for the humans that are part of this process to give better, timely feedback, and that led to better success.
I would love to. I'll connect with you on LinkedIn because I would love to read your paper. Thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you. Thank you for the question.
I'm gonna let everybody have a minute or two back. Manju, I see your hand up. Sue is in Sidebar, so if you still have questions or just want to geek out as well, so
Yeah.
there's the Sidebar platform and the Sidebar community Slack, and hopefully the two of you can connect. Sue, what's the best way for folks to follow up with you if they're outside of Sidebar? If
Yeah,
you want
so
to share
that
your
would
LinkedIn
be,
or
yeah, that'd be LinkedIn. Thank you so much for asking her. I always leave out those things. So let me drop the link. The best place to connect would be LinkedIn. I'm very active there. And once you connect with me there, there'll be other ways for you to connect with me deeper. If you want me to come in and take a look at your company or team workflows and want to design human in the loop systems, then I'd be happy to do that. I do want to say one quick thing. I want
sure.
to thank you, first of all, for making time for being here with me today and everybody on the call. I see so many of my sidebar cohort people. Shout out to you guys. I see family, so thank you for just showing up. Like, this is the best Valentine's Day gift for me that people showed up to support me and listen to it. I really hope you got value out of it. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for showing up.
Well, thank you for an incredible session, Sue. We will send out the recording and then drop any other resources that Sue wants to share later tonight. But with that, everybody have an amazing Friday. Have a great weekend. Happy Valentine's Day, and we will
Happy
see you
Valentine's
next
Day.
time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.